Welcome to Fathers and Daughters, a podcast where we discuss important topics and current issues from a biblical perspective that are relative to fathers and daughters.
Please subscribe and email us at fdpodcast@yahoo.com with questions or episode topic suggestions. All right. Hello and welcome to episode
15. Is it 15?
15.
Is it 15?
I think so. I think the last one was 14. So I think
Yeah, this is 15.
That makes this one 15.
And happy Martin Luther King
Happy
Day.
Martin Luther King Day. We both had today off. So
We did. And what did we do today?
today we went out and saw the last, episode 9 of the Star Wars movies.
The
Which
Rise of
was
Skywalker.
Beyond amazing. Such a good ending to the trilogy. If you're not Star Wars people, be changed like I was and my father before me.
And me too. And I've talked about this before, that I wasn't into Star Wars.
We were not into the Star Wars thing, and having Disney Plus for sure made this process easy. I'm pretty sure that if we had to rent them from people or whatever, I probably would have given up pretty easily. But
borrowed them from people.
if you had to borrow the movies or the DVDs or whatever,
Yeah.
that probably would have made things really difficult. But having Disney Plus was so convenient because we could just hit play right there, and that was so easy. So,
a couple years ago, I thought about buying the DVD set.
oh really?
Through Amazon, just because, I don't know, I was like, maybe I should go back and rewatch the original 3 and then the new ones too, but I never did. So you're right, with Disney Plus, you can just push play.
Yeah.
And it's been cool.
And as someone who just loves movies in general, just the history of how these were made and how the stories were written is just so mesmerizing to me, that something that was made in the 70s is something that still carries on to today and is making millions on billions of dollars in movie theaters now, when the first one came out in 1978 or 9, that's just insane. So I think that was really cool. I'm really excited to ride the new ride at Disneyland. We're going to make that a priority here pretty soon, but we're really excited about that too.
We were supposed to go this morning, but your brother got sick, so we couldn't go.
And I got sick.
I'm very glad that I got into the movies when you were at this age, because you're one of those people that really follow stories and plots, and you make all the connections, and it was very fun to do this with you and see you get excited about characters, and
it's fun to
and all that.
To tie this back in and to go full circle. I think that's one of the things you and I have always really bonded with, was a good story. Regardless of what it is, where it comes, we always can appreciate a good storyline. Yeah. We're huge Marvel people. We love sitting down and watching the Marvel movies, and that was a really fun thing for me to introduce to you. Mm-hmm. And I had seen all of them, but then to get to bring you into the mix and then get to see the last movie with you after you had learned everything was just so cool. And then you getting introduced Star Wars to me, and then me getting to see the last movie with you was really cool. But we were always into the Fast and Furious and those kind of movies too.
The Hunger Games.
The Hunger Games. We can always appreciate a really good storyline. And I'm yeah, it's 9 movies, but I'm a movie person. That's a restful day for me, is to just sit and watch movies. So that was really fun.
And going back to Star Wars, I want to do an episode on Star Wars.
Okay.
Can we? Can we do an episode on Star Wars?
I don't know what we'll make that about, but
I don't know. It was just, like I said, it was fun to go through that journey with you. And then Mom, she hopped in too. And she started watching those with us. And I don't know. I just want to talk about how that was, and just a little bit about the movies. And there's a lot of connections in the movie that we can make with spiritual stuff.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
It's deep.
We'll figure it out.
Just the force is strong.
Okay.
But tonight is not about Star Wars. What are we going to talk about tonight?
So I found this article a while back, and I remember I texted it to you, and you were like, we have to do a podcast on this. I was like, cool. This article, what's it titled? What's the actual title?
Is the 5 toughest things for children to talk about with their parents.
So we've done a few episodes on tough conversations, that kind of stuff. But I clicked on this article because I thought it was a little interesting, because the first one wasn't sex. And I feel like that's so different than what you'd normally find. I feel like the first thing that usually would pop up on an article like this is sex. And I was super surprised to find an article where it said it wasn't sex. I was like, oh, this should be interesting. So I don't know if I fully agree with everything in this article, but I just thought it was a different perspective on ideas of having tough conversations. It's from a website called allprodad.com. So this was written from a parent's perspective. So I'll read you a little bit of an intro for it. It says, when it comes to talking about certain subjects, kids can also seem like a locked vault, refusing to open up. However, the right approach and questioning, any kid can open up. Learning how to have difficult conversations with kids takes practice and listening in all senses. Our kids need guidance, and we can't give it out until we have earned enough trust for them to open up. So I just like that. That was really good. I feel like that was really wise. So let's jump right in. Let's start with number 5.
Are these in any order?
Yeah, they're numbered.
All right. So the first one.
The last, number 5.
Number 5 is divorce. Obviously, that would be a tough subject to talk about, I would think. I'm very glad that we didn't have to deal with that. We almost did, but thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah. I would love one day to have maybe a father-daughter visit who have gone through divorce in their family and talk about how hard that is, because I don't feel like I can just fully address some of the real problems that come up because I haven't gone through it. I'm seeing from third person's eyes, you can really tell how divorce can screw up a kid.
Yeah.
When done the way it has been, I think there's all these studies and seeing how when you can be cordial and be co-parents and all these things. And I think there's all these studies and obviously we believe what the Bible says about divorce and that, you should have to work through your marriage. But yeah, as from a third person's eyes, I could just really see how it's screwed up some people. And I think it'd be a really interesting guest to have just come up and talk about it.
Like a dad and daughter who have gone through that experience.
Because there's a lot of hurt on both ends. I'm sure there's a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's just a lot of confusion. But yeah, I'm sure that's a very difficult topic to talk about.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have any firsthand experience, but I could see how that would be tough. I think as a kid, seeing your parents going through that divorce would be very difficult. Mm-hmm. I think as a kid, you would probably feel like you have to choose, or maybe you would feel like you're not the priority. I don't know. Like, we haven't gone through that, but I agree. I think divorce is probably in the top 5.
Yeah, and I'd love to do some research. Like, I'd love to learn what that's like for some other people. And maybe that just takes us doing our research and reaching out to some people who have gone through that so that maybe we can help use their stories to help other people who might be in the middle of going through something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Number 4.
Number 4 is spiritual questions. Did you ever struggle through that?
I don't think so. I remember coming to you a lot of times with spiritual questions just about what everything was. I mean, the Bible, there's so many questions and there's so many things to ask and talk about that I'm sure like I had when I was a kid. I don't remember having any issues talking about those things, but I think the context that the article's trying to get to is that maybe parents who don't introduce their children to religion at an early age or at all, or maybe each parent's introducing a different religion, or maybe they're not religious at all and the kids learning about it from their friends and want to talk about it. Like I think there's just so much context to that.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I was introduced to Christianity right from the very start. So I had the church, I had friends, I had leaders I could go to for that kind of stuff. That really wasn't an issue for me because I was raised in an environment where both my parents were on the same team spiritually and wanted me to be on that same boat as well.
And spiritual conversations and questions were welcomed and encouraged because it was always normal, right?
Yeah. What about you? Did you have any issues with that growing up?
My dad and I never talked about spiritual stuff. Most of the spiritual conversations that I had them with my mom. I grew up Catholic because automatically, if you're Hispanic, most likely you're going to be Catholic. And we were very involved in church. We went to church every Sunday. I used to help a lot in church. My mom and I had spiritual conversations all the time. So that was really good. But like I only had them with one parent, not with the other. So to me, asking those spiritual questions was not a challenge. My mom was very open and willing to answer any questions. With my dad, I don't think I ever tried it because I was just not, that openness was not there.
Interesting.
Number 3 is bad influence friends.
Yeah, I think those were hard to talk about.
Was that hard to talk about for you?
A little bit. Mainly because I definitely know I had bad influence friends who poorly influenced me. But they were my friends regardless, or at least I thought that they were. And it's hard to talk about them because especially when your parents know that they're bad influence friends and want you to stay away from them, and you want to continue to defend your friends, or at least what you think your friends are. I had a really interesting encounter with a family member recently, and I had taken her out for the day, which was super fun for me. She's like 14, and we were out for the day just around hanging out. She started telling me all about the drama with the girls in her school and the boys, and oh my gosh, there was just so much drama that I couldn't keep up. I had to continuously ask, like, who's this person again, and wasn't this person dating so and so, and she's in middle school, so there's just drama galore. I remember her bringing up a certain friend, and I was like, hey, you constantly talk about this person, and you constantly bring up negative things that she says about you. And she's like, she's really loyal. That was her word. She's like, she's really loyal to me. I was like, yeah, but it kind of sounds like she's saying some really nasty stuff about you. And we're like, oh, no, she's a good friend. She's a good friend. I was like, good friends don't say stuff like that to their friends. And you could tell it started to get hard for her to talk about this friend. And so I kind of get it. Like, you want to defend your friends because you believe that these people care about you at the time. And there was a very obvious moment where I had to have a sit down and just say, hey, this person does not care about you at all. It would probably be good for you if you didn't talk to her anymore, or at least confronted her about the things that she was saying about you. You know, like, she was constantly hearing from other people saying the girl was saying stuff about her behind her back. And I was like, dang, this person just doesn't sound like a good person. And so I kind of feel like I get it. It was a little bit of like an insight to my childhood. And I was like, dang, I definitely had friends that were bad influencers, or they make you look good, or they make you popular. They bring some kind of benefit to you. And so you want to defend them because they're your friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think overall you did a pretty good job, though, of handling that. I think every kid goes through that stage where they have to analyze who's going to be their good friends. You know, every kid has to choose. But I think you handled that season very well.
I had a friend when I was in 6th grade, and I'll never forget her. And I won't say her name because I don't want to reveal that. But I had this friend, let's call her Jane. I had this girl, her name was Jane.
Oh, I remember Jane.
You don't know who Jane is. I never had a friend named Jane. And it was in like 5th and 6th grade. This girl was one of the biggest bullies across elementary school. Like, people just knew who she was across all grades. Like, they knew she was the biggest bully. But for some reason, she took to me, and she was like a good friend to me. She was kind, loyal, didn't really say bad stuff about me, but she was horrible to everyone else. And I was friends with her for a good amount of time, and I started to get pretty close to this girl and just watched her just say horrible things about people, and she'd bring me all of this gossip all the time. And I remember coming home and telling Mom about her one day, and I remember she was like, this girl sounds horrible. Why would you want to be friends with her? I was like, well, she's a good friend to me. Like, she brings benefit to me. And I remember Mom was just like, but look at what she's doing to everyone else. Who's to say you're not next? And sure enough, this girl stabbed me in the back and said horrible things about me and spread terrible rumors. And I was like, but I remember defending her to Mom and be like, no, you don't get it. Like, she's a good friend to me. It's all that matters. It's about me. Like, she's a good friend to me. I remember, I'll never forget it. Mom was like, she sounds like a terrible person. And she almost told me, like, you got it coming to you. And sure enough, I did.
Shame on you, Jane.
Yeah, Jane.
What is Jane doing nowadays?
I have no idea.
Huh. That would be interesting. Huh?
No idea where she is, what she's doing. I don't follow her on any social media platforms, nothing.
Huh.
What's the next one?
Number 2 is sex.
You're number 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
Not number 1.
Number 2
is sex.
I said number 2.
Did you have an issue talking about sex with your parents?
One parent, not the other.
So you didn't have a problem talking about sex with your mom, but you did with your dad?
Right. Yeah. My mom was very open about everything.
I don't.
A little too much sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I get that.
I was like, Mom, that's not cool.
Yeah,
you know, it's
totally
like,
get that.
Kind of.
Understand completely.
Yeah. You know, she just wanted to make sure that we had an open conversation and that.
What was your sex talk like? Like, did she sit you down and do, like, at the kitchen table?
No, this is the earliest memory I have about talking about sex with my parents or my mom. We were sitting down at the doctor's office, waiting for some appointment, and there was a poster in the room of the male reproductive system. So I guess my mom saw the opportunity and then she started talking to me about sex.
And, an opportunist.
And I love that. I don't know. She probably said, mijo,
when a man loves a woman.
I don't remember. And she told me about intercourse and I was confused. I was like, that's weird. So does the man pee inside the woman?
Yikes.
And so, as a kid, you're just thinking about what you know at the time. But that was the first memory I have. And then,
how old do you think you were?
I was probably like 7.
Oh, okay. That's a bit early, 7, but not bad.
7 or 8. I don't know.
Okay.
But then after that, she was very open about everything. And we had a very comfortable lifestyle at home. We were not nudists, but we were not embarrassed to, just walk around half naked or whatever. So
really,
yeah, nudity was not something shameful, and sex was not something dirty. So I'm kind of thankful that she talked to me about sex at an early age, and she really made an effort to not make that a taboo topic.
Sure.
But with my dad, I had no conversations about sex. I attempted to have a conversation with my dad about sex once when I was starting to get into my teenage years and I started experiencing my first erections. And I remember laying in bed one night and my dad came into my room and I said, "Hey, Dad, I just want to ask you, why is this happening to me?" And he just kind of brushed it off. And that was a huge missed opportunity, where he could have sat down with me and really told me what I was experiencing and what it was. And
even just to have emotional intimacy with him like that was probably like what you wanted, was to just be able to connect with him emotionally.
Yeah. And, he just said something like, "Oh, don't worry about it, go to bed," and he like rushed out of the room. And knowing the way he grew up, that was probably not a topic that was talked about in his family. So for him, that was an unknown area and it was very uncomfortable for him.
Sure.
So you can thank him because I was the total opposite. With you, I was very comfortable talking about sex and answering questions.
Too comfortable.
But I just didn't want to be like that. And I know as a boy growing up, you need to hear those things from your dad.
Yeah.
It was great that my mom introduced me to a lot of that stuff, but there was a lot that I missed not learning that from my dad.
Sure. And I agree wholeheartedly. I think as a younger woman, going to mom was definitely a lot easier than going to you sometimes, just because I knew like she had the same stuff I did.
Right.
And it was okay doing that. You know what I mean? So I definitely think it was easier for me to go to her. So to speak to some maybe single dads, it might be beneficial. Like if there's not a strong female presence in your daughter's life, to find someone who can represent that, to have someone who she can go to. Not to say that you aren't worthy of doing stuff like that, but like when I got my first period, I didn't go to you.
Right.
I went to mom because I was like, he doesn't have what I've got, but she does.
Right.
So she gets it. And I know she uses those kind of products. Like I can go to her for those things. So it's not to say that we as women don't feel like you can have that conversation. It's just that sometimes it might be more comfortable for us to go to someone who we know has the same stuff.
Yeah, like a grandma or an aunt.
But that does not mean to say at all that you can't do that. That might just be your situation at the time, and that's okay. Do with what you can.
Yeah.
And this goes for many other things, not just talking about sex or getting your period or whatever. If your daughter doesn't have a strong female presence in her life, that might be something good to aspire to. A family friend, an aunt, a grandma, a neighbor, just someone who is safe and comfortable, because as a young woman growing up, like we need those people. Sometimes it's hard to talk to your dad about girl drama because you're a man. You don't all the time experience girl trauma.
Right.
If anything, you experience the repercussions of girl trauma.
Yeah.
And it might be easier as a young woman to go to another woman to talk about those things.
I would be like, that's stupid. Just hug it out.
Yeah, just hug it out, because that's what guys do. But with women, sometimes there's more emotional healing that needs to happen, or just even having uncomfortable conversations sometimes is easier with someone of the same sex.
Sure.
And again, that doesn't mean you can't do it. When we had the sex talk, mom sat and just supported.
Yeah. She was like,
she was very quiet.
No, I'm not doing that. You do it. I'm
like,
okay.
But it wasn't that she felt uncomfortable doing it.
No.
I just think that she had full knowledge that you could do it.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, that was an incredibly awkward and uncomfortable night because it is for anybody. But it taught me that like sex isn't a dirty thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's how we reproduce as human beings. It's made by God and to be experienced in God's time and through marriage. You know, like I was taught those things before we even got into
and enjoyed.
Yeah, and enjoyed. And it's supposed to be taught and experienced in God's manner. And that's how we started the conversation, is just by saying, hey, this is a beautiful thing that was made by God, that is used in the way God says it should, and is enjoyed the way God said it should. Do it as such. Now we can talk about it. So
we were very fortunate that you had a mom, you know, who was part of our lives, and
100%.
And she was there for you to go to, even though you went to her first for some topics, you know, just like the topic of you having a period and stuff like that wasn't weird for me because that's just life, you know, and that's just what it is.
It's natural, and if you're gonna make something that's natural and comfortable, then that's a you thing.
Yeah. Before we move to the number one,
okay,
I want to tell dads that when it comes to sex, do not brush it off and do not leave it for someone else to handle this topic. Get ready for it if your daughter is still young.
Or your son.
This
is for all things.
True.
All beings.
Get ready, anticipate it. Like Isabel said, you know, find that female role model that is going to be ready to talk to your daughter when this happens. Mm-hmm. And with your son, be a man and be a good father.
And young girls or boys out there, I get it. It sucks. It's uncomfortable. It's weird. It's awkward, but bear through it. I promise you'll learn about it someday from someone in some manner. Wouldn't you much rather it come from a loving place and a safe place than it to come from an unsafe person in a way that can make it be perceived as something it's not?
All right. Number one.
I'm ready.
Romantic relationships.
Isn't that crazy? That blew me away.
You think these are in order of...
I do.
Really?
I do.
I would think sex would be number one.
Nope.
And then maybe spiritual questions number two. But romantic relationships, why do you think that is?
I think it's hard to change your parents' persona of who they think you are. I think for a lot of people, they become different people when they get into relationships. And to introduce that different person who they've become to their parents, I'm sure is really hard. Think about the stigma of like the quote, meeting the parents. Like that's such a thing that's said nowadays that's meant to be weird. That's awkward or like a weird situation. You know what I mean? The meeting the parents thing.
Why is that weird?
Because I think, like I said before, I think a lot of people...
Because I'll have my shotgun out waiting for the guy to come
that's
to
exactly
the door?
why it's weird. I think as a young woman, we want to bring someone home who is not going to be intimidated or weirded out or given bad vibes from your family. We don't want to bring someone home who's like that. But I think introducing someone to your family is really scary. I think in some ways, like, you want your family to approve of who the person you're bringing home is. And I think you want the person you're bringing home to like your family.
Then pick the right guy.
That's insensitive.
No, I can see that.
Like, you want everyone to get along and to enjoy being around each other. And you're creating that environment. And if both parties don't help, that's hurtful to people. Like, if I brought someone home and you treated them like crap, I'd be pissed.
Sure.
If I brought someone home and he treated you like crap, I'd be pissed.
Right.
Not that I think you would do that, but I think in a lot of circumstances, like, you want things to work out and you want things to be good, and family can be embarrassing sometimes and can be intentional about embarrassing you when that's not what you want.
But I think choosing a guy or choosing a girl starts at an early age with the expectations that you put on your kid and how you teach them what's important, how a woman or a man should be treated. Like with you, if you brought a guy home, I would totally be comfortable with who you brought home, because I know that you would not pick someone who didn't treat you with respect, who didn't have the same values that you did, who didn't love Christ the way you do. You know, and those are things that are established from an early age. Obviously, you're going to have to bring someone who does not get offended very easily and who's going to blend in well with the crazy family that we have.
Yes, but I don't think you're understanding where I'm coming from here. Is that all those things you just said, that's a lot of pressure to put on someone to bring home that perfect person. I want all those things too. And I believe I've made that very clear, is that that's exactly what I want. But that's a lot of pressure to put on someone to make sure they bring home the perfect person. Whenever my youth girls tell me, they're like, oh, I like this guy. Oh, I think this guy's cute. I don't ever want to embarrass them. I've always been very cautious of that because I never want that to be a turnoff for them. I never want them to feel uncomfortable about introducing me to some guy. It kind of paid off recently when I was at youth group with them and they introduced me to this guy that one of them likes. And I just went up and I shook his hand, and like that was such an honoring moment for me, that they were so open and so willing and so comfortable to just say, hey, I want to introduce this guy to you because I think you're awesome.
Yeah.
And that was such a heartwarming, like, success moment for me to be like, holy crap. And that doesn't mean that I won't defend them. We were at camp 2 summers ago, and there was a guy through the window of our dining hall poking fun and laughing at one of my girls to the point where she broke down in tears. And they came and got me. And I remember walking over to the boy, and I sat down at his table, and I said, I want to know who your leader is. And they told me. I called the leader over there, and I explained the situation of what was happening. He denied it. I said, I saw you. He finally accepted that that's what he was doing. And I said, if you ever talk to them like that again, I'm going to make things really difficult for you here. We're going to call your parents. We're going to fill out a bullying form. You don't get to treat people that way, especially people who were trying to be kind to you. Don't ever talk to people like that again. And it was me showing loyalty. So it's not that I won't stand up for them or I won't step in, because I will, but I want to make sure I create an environment for them that's comfortable for them to bring people to me.
Yeah.
And I wish this was a more open conversation between kids and parents. It's that it's a lot of pressure for us to have to bring someone home who's perfect for you. We want to bring someone home who's up to your level and your standards and all these things. And we want those same things too.
Yeah.
But no one's perfect.
Well, no.
Hold on.
Okay.
No one's perfect. And I know you get that. But we still want what you want for us. And if any girl says that that's not the truth, then they're lying. We always want the perfect guy who looks perfect, who acts perfect, who does everything perfect. And we want that too. But bringing someone home is so vulnerable and so open, not just with him, but with the family. Of saying like, all right, here it is. Expecting him to go in and make note of everything with your family, hoping and praying that they get along. And your family going in and meeting him and hoping and praying that everyone gets along. It's intimidating and it's hard, regardless of what age you're at. Because I know for me, like, I want to make you proud and I want to do that right. And I want to make sure that he's going to feel comfortable and that he comes in and doesn't feel intimidated in any way.
Yeah.
But that he feels comfortable and loved and cared for. And like, there's always that saying that like, when you come home from a date, your dad's going to be cleaning his shotgun. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, is that in love or is that to establish power?
Yeah.
Because I think one of those is right. And there's a difference between saying, hey, I love my daughter and I'm going to protect my daughter regardless of whatever you say. There's a way to do that without having a shotgun on the table.
Right.
I mean, there's like a reason girls don't tell their parents they're dating.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very defined reason. And I always encourage my youth girls, I'm like, tell your parents you're dating. Because if you can't date, you shouldn't be dating. But if you're allowed to date, do it in the parameters where everybody's comfortable. And it's an open conversation. But there's a reason kids don't tell their parents they're dating.
I can see how there can be a lot of pressure. And you know I'm not going to wait for you with the shotgun when you bring the first guy, right? It's just...
No, but I know that there's a lot of other dads out there who might be going through that mindset. Yeah. And I want to tell them that the pressure of bringing someone home is enough. The pressure of him meeting you, I'm sure, is enough.
Well, I think it's that pressure of being accepted. Not only
100%.
Not only by him, but also by your family. And you want everyone to get along. And I think I don't see the importance of this topic as much as maybe the author or you do, because for me, it's been a long time since I had to go through that. But yeah, looking back, I remember when I first introduced Mom to my parents, and I'm sure I was crapping my pants. Mom said she had diarrhea. So it was that pressure and that nervousness and just wanting to be loved and accepted.
And that's a vulnerable place for anybody introducing a family member would be. And so my call, I guess, to dads is, I think there's more to be said with kind words than rough actions. And I think you can get your point across better by using kind, loving language to him that's assertive than you using tough actions against him.
Yeah, and setting the expectations and just setting everything from an early age.
And I want to go back to the very beginning of the article where the author says, it says, our kids need guidance, but we can't give it to them, or we can't give it until we have earned enough trust for them to open up. And I think that's big too. I think you and I have a lot of trust, and I just think our family has a lot of trust. And so I felt open to talking about romantic relationships to an extent.
Yeah.
I'm not a very vulnerable person. Doing these podcasts for me are really hard sometimes.
Really?
Because I don't like being open and emotional about my feelings.
Oh,
I'm getting better at doing it for sure, and using sentences like I feel and things like that. And so I don't think it's been super difficult for us to have an open conversation about romantic relationships, but it has been hard at times. I think any advice I could give to dads out there is let her come to you first more than anything.
Don't pressure her.
Don't pry.
Yeah.
Don't pry at all, ever. If she wants to talk about it, she'll come to you about it. Just be open and receptive towards whatever she has to say about it. If it gets to a point where you know something's wrong or something bad is happening, then sure, feel free to step in. But if it's at a place where she's old enough to be doing what she's doing, even if it's just a crush, like let her come to you first. If you see she's acting weird around some guy, let her come to you.
And don't tease, because that'll separate more than unite.
She will not want to tell you anything.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, you mentioned trust, and that's what I was referring to, setting the expectations or, getting ready from an early age, because I think you and I built a lot of trust from an early age. Like you said, not like we talked about everything, but I think we were better at communicating than most dads and daughters. And I think that's what helped with these topics. But I agree with this one being number one, I guess. This is the one that we talked about the most, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
for me, this one was the hardest to talk about for sure.
Interesting.
And maybe that's just my perspective about the rest of these topics. But we have a very fun, sarcastic family. And that's gotten us into some trouble sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to romantic relationships. I don't like being teased about stuff like that. For me, like that's an area of vulnerability. Like I hate flirting. I'm like, this, what you see is what you get. And having to talk about liking someone or dating someone or potentially dating someone, I want to feel safe when I have that conversation, because it's not something I joke about. It's not something I take lightly.
Yeah.
If that's the situation that I'm in, it's because I'm intentionally being intentional about it. And I want to know that if I need to talk about it, it's going to be a safe and non-joking environment.
Yeah, we do have a sarcastic family. And I guess when it comes to a topic like that, that can backfire.
And there's been circumstances where I've just been very open and honest and said, I don't want to joke about this anymore. There are things we can joke about and there are things we don't joke about. And for me, this is one of the things I don't like to joke about. I don't like being sarcastic about it. It's an area where I'm super vulnerable, and that's not, when we get sarcastic about things like that, I don't feel safe.
Well, I'm sorry if I ever made you feel
that's
uncomfortable.
Okay. I appreciate your apology.
It's very hard to not be sarcastic sometimes. And I am not going to wait with my shotgun.
Oh,
no.
Praise God. Thank you.
And I will love whoever you bring home, because I trust your judgment and who you're going to pick.
Honestly, there's a lot of reasons why I haven't brought just anybody home. It's because I want to make sure that he's the person who's supposed to come home.
Yeah, but, it's not all up to you. It's up to the other person, too.
Sure.
And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out. And if they do you wrong, then we have a lot of land in the backyard. And
what part of not being sarcastic
make people disappear?
Obvious. Remember, you just apologized for doing it, and now you are doing it again.
I apologize again.
I feel like this is going to be a long apologetic process.
This is an awkward silence.
Why is it awkward?
This was a good topic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I had no idea it was hard for you to do these podcasts because...
Sometimes, not all the time.
You'll love the 40s. Like when you turn 40, because you don't give a crap about what people think or say.
I feel like I am 40.
Like it's so nice to be this age because, I don't care what people think. I am who I am and I like what I like, and that makes me happy.
And sometimes it gets you into trouble.
Yeah, sometimes.
It's a whole other topic.
That's another topic.
Another podcast.
Yeah. This was a good article. I'm glad you found it.
Me too. If you think we missed a topic or you have a different article you'd like us to go over, send it to us. I'd love to know if we missed something that you're like, we definitely need to talk about this.
Yeah. And to close, thank you for listening. Please visit our iTunes and subscribe. Give us 5 stars just so we can get some exposure out there and listen to our future episodes.
Yeah.
I hope you all guys have a good night.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Fathers and Daughters podcast, a Moosegood Entertainment production. For questions, comments, or topic ideas, email fdpodcast@yahoo.com. Please subscribe and tune in every week for new episodes.